We are going to be grading every team for their week 4 performance. And we're going to start out in the F tier. And the first team that we have is the Arizona Cardinals. They were blown out 42-14 at home by a rookie. The second worst EPA per play on defense. Only 115 passing yards on Washington, who was the worst pass defense in EPA per pass. After what the Cardinals did to the Rams the week prior, to come out and get stomped like this was just embarrassing. And the Cardinals just did not look like a good team. They didn't look like the team from the week before.
No, I mean, look, F might be generous. This might be an F minus performance if it's even possible. Look, jokes aside, I mean, man, oh man, you got to be real concerned after that if you're a Cardinals fan because, and look, hands up, guys, hands up, guys. We jumped the gun on the Cardinals. Oh, it's safe to say we jumped the gun on the Cardinals. They gave us a couple favorable hands. We got excited. No. Look, the Cardinals team still has a long way to go. I think it's the Cardinals are not a playoff team. I'm sorry. It is what it is at this point. There still is a long way to go.
Our next team in the F category is the New England Patriots. Dobbs, why are they in F?
Well, again, it's pretty simple, but here to give a quick explanation. Look, the team is not who we thought they were, or are they? I mean, this game was over the minute the ball was kicked off, literally 32. So 32 out of 32 in EPA per play on offense in week 4, 8th on defense. But look, more than just the little note that we have for the Patriots, the bottom line is the offensive line is terrible. The offense is not playing good. Everything hinges on the defense playing perfect, and you can't expect your defense to play perfect every single week.
No, and at the end of the day, like, we knew what this offensive line was. We knew what this offense was. So it's just unfortunate, but this probably won't be the last time we see the Patriots in the F category. Moving into our next team, we have the Miami Dolphins in F. Without Tua, the team kind of stinks. Top 8 worst defense this week in EPA per play. A team known for being one of the better run offenses in the leagues the last couple of years. They are now 31st in EPA per rush in this year. And it's just, I mean, without Tua, like, this team is just a completely different vibe. And even with Tua, I was not too high on them. But, Dobbs, unless you have any points, I mean, this should wrap up the F category. Only 3 teams this week.
Yeah, look, one point, and look, he's been one of my guys here in the past, and not that he still isn't to an extent, but there's a point where I start to say, and I know other people are asking the same question here, Hunter. There's a point where Mike McDaniel, the finger gets pointed at you, and I know you're in a situation that's a bad situation, but look, we've seen great coaches have to fall on their backup quarterback before and still have productive game plans and still find ways to win games. When you can't do that, especially against a team like the Titans, I'm sorry, that falls on you as a coach, and you got to take responsibility and you got to figure it out because sooner than later, getting to the playoffs and not winning doesn't do anything for the franchise. And if you can't back up game plan, there's a point where questions need to be asked. I'm going to leave it at that.
Moving into D, we have the Buffalo Bills. Now, key players on defense were missing, but they still got gashed in the run game, and the offense could not find any answers. After watching what the Bills did to the Jags the week prior, you would hope that versus a struggling Ravens team that you would be able to come out and at least be competitive. I want to chalk this one up to missing players and kind of riding high on last win, but it was just not a good showing from on the offensive side of the ball or defensive side, and I kind of expected them to be a little bit better on the offensive side, especially with the Ravens' struggles on defense, but the Ravens showed up and showed out on both sides.
No, yeah, look, I will say I think it's more of a testament to the Ravens. But again, and look, Sean McDermott, this is not, I'm not saying he's on the hot seat, because he's not. But same concept as I was just talking about. There's a point where, because I think you agree, I'm really tired of hearing the excuses from fans. Because I will never sit here as a Saints fan and do that. I am not going to sit here. I will never sit here and do that. The whole, well, we were missing key players. Well, when the Chiefs are missing key players, you never hear about it because they still win games. Right. When the Patriots used to be missing key players, you didn't hear about it because they were still winning games, right? Great coaches find ways to win games, and they're not going to sit here and use that as an excuse. I'm not saying that Sean McDermott was, but I'm saying I'm really tired of hearing, well, we were missing key players. Well, it's NFL. Every single week, you're probably going to be missing a key player. That's the name and nature of the game. If you need all 22 of your starters to be out there to win games, good fucking luck.
Moving into our next team in the D category, we have the Cleveland Browns. Dobbs, why do we have them in D?
All right, Hunter got him in D because sixth worst EPA per play on offense. Beaten by a Vegas team that can run the ball and played without Devontae Adams and Max Crosby. And on top of that, we know the culture in Vegas right now is just ew. The whole Devontae situation, just call it for what it is. Them losing to this Vegas team, I think we were being generous giving them a D. But you know why we gave him a D? Because Deshaun Watson did look like vintage Deshaun Watson. Unfortunately, everybody else on the offense forgot how to play football the same week. You can't make this up.
Yeah, the line is really a shell of itself. Moving into the next team in D, I got the New Orleans Saints, Dobbs.
Generous.
It was a rough week this week. They lost to a division rival on a last-second field goal where the defense allowed 0 touchdowns. 4 field goals were allowed, 2 turnovers on offense that turns into touchdowns. I mean, I don't know how they could have been graded any bit higher. This was just a rough week for the Saints, who started out really hot.
Can I just throw in a little tidbit too here, just because it's just so funny because every Saints fans can know exactly where I'm coming from. I tell you, the moment Rashid Shaheed did what he did, the writing was already in the wall. Like, every Saints fan watching that game was like, "Ha, those are going to be the points to come back and fuck us." That's why this is fantastic. But on top of that, I just want to add one more thing because it's truly something you can't make up here, Hunter. And I can't remember if it was 84, 86, or 82. Someone's got to fact check me, but you can go and look. This is a fact, regardless of what I'm about to say. Whatever year it was, this is a fact. The only 2 teams in NFL history to score more than 20 points and not allow an offensive touchdown and to lose the game, it was the Saints both times. You gotta love that shit, man. You really gotta. Nobody finds a way to lose more games in more unique, stupid ways than the Saints. It needs to stop.
The Saints and the Falcons kind of have that kind of similarity in the same division.
Kind of do, but the Saints just indefinitely worse. I'm sorry. It's ridiculous at this point.
We got the New York Jets in the D category as well. They lost to one of the worst rosters in football, and they did not score a touchdown. Now, the Broncos defense is possibly looking for real, but the offense has continually held this team back over the last couple of years, and it's looking like that's going to be the case again. They were the 29th ranked offense in EPA per play in week 4. Yes, the defense did good, but at the same time, you're playing Bo Nix and Courtland Sutton on offense, so I don't know if that's much of a flex, you know?
Yeah, no. And again, I think we were being generous, just like we were at the Saints. This very well could have been an F performance. I mean, given the standard that we expected from the Jets versus the Broncos, I mean, again, and they played in the same weather. You know, I know Jets fans like, but the weather, no, well, the Broncos played in the same weather, believe it or not. And more than anything, it's just these are the type of games that I truly believe kind of define your culture, right? They do. Like, you know, right, we've seen teams with good culture. You don't go in and lose these type of games, especially in the fashion that they lost it. Ties into the Jets hot take video that I believe will be released before this. But, you know, if it's not, you know, stay tuned or go watch it.
Our last team in the D category is the Philadelphia Eagles. Dobbs, why do we have them there?
Yeah, Hunter. Well, the game didn't feel close. Both teams, yes, have injuries, but again, the Bucks far and away playing like the much better team. They wanted to win much more clearly. Philadelphia was never favored after 12-16 in the first quarter. And just, I mean, this was dismal. There was a stat where I don't remember the exact yardage, but the Bucks had over 200 yards. The Eagles had 0 yards. Again, Nick Sirianni, the seat was already hot, but it's to the point where if I'm Howie Roseman, especially the Eagles, like the one team, especially where if I'm looking at Belichick and I'm like, no, that's really what we're missing. Like that the discipline, the firm structure. That's what we're missing. Because Nick Sirianni, the fun guy. Well, we see how it's translating here.
I think the biggest thing before we move on to C is, remember when we talked about the Eagles a couple years ago and they were like 10-0? We were like, this team doesn't feel like the same team, and then they weren't. This feels like Eagles that, but worse.
Couldn't believe what we were saying. They couldn't believe it, Hunter. They were like, "What are you talking about? Like what?" Like.
Yeah, it just doesn't. It just kind of feels like that. It's like, oh, we're supposed to be good, they're not, and it's just not good vibes. Moving into C, we have the Atlanta Falcons. So I know you win and you beat your division rival, but you only end up with the C, and that's because the offense was not able to score a touchdown, and they were able to make plays on defense and beat a division rival, and I think that gets you a C. But overall, it just was not the most impressive game from the Atlanta Falcons.
No, credit to the Falcons, right? Hey, it's a win is a win, but only the Saints would have found a way to lose a game like this. That is objectively, as we just talked about, it is objectively a fact.
All right, we got the Dallas Cowboys in the C category as well. Why are they there?
Well, look, only beating a team like the Giants, right, especially your division rival, but only 5 is concerning when we view Dallas as the much more talented team. The Giants were the 5th worst in EPA per play on defense. Dallas was top 5 in EPA per play on offense, right? But they're also top 4 in the worst defenses in the entire league throughout the year. It, we were already concerned about the Giants. We already know about the Giants. This is not a surprise. We're getting much more concerned about the Cowboys week in and week out here at this point, Hunter. I mean, Mike Zimmer, you got some questions to answer.
Yeah, it's kind of concerning because I just think that defense is way more talented than they're showing, and kind of felt like when Dan Quinn left, like the defense may take a step back. And when they hired Zimmer, I was like, okay, but it just has not been working out.
And might we add Parsons and DeMarcus out for foreseeable future couple weeks? That's the last thing you want to hear if you're a Cowboys fan.
Green Bay Packers in the C category. So the Packers start out the game exceptionally rough at home versus a division rival, getting blown out, right? And they came back once the Vikings kind of took their foot off the pedal, but they were never favored to win the game after 12:43 in the first quarter. So you get the C because you made a valiant effort to come back, but without that comeback and the Vikings taking off, this was a D or F game. Like it was a bad performance from the Packers.
No, absolutely. And I'm going to say this. I think more than anything, because this is what we can all also agree on too. The Vikings they got complacent on defense. They started getting real vanilla. They didn't bring the blitz as much as they needed to. And the Packers started picking them apart. And look, to Jordan Love's credit, I know everyone is kind of taking their shots at Jordan Love right now per se, but I think it's not. I'm not considering blame Jordan Love. Really, nobody has figured out the Vikings defense. Again, you said valiant effort, but the bottom line is you can't start out the way they did, and you really can't get higher than a C when that's the way it started.
Jacksonville Jaguars are in C. They've escaped D and F territory.
Aye. Well, yeah, much better than they looked in the past weeks. Still not able to get it done versus division rival, right? Still one of the worst defenses in the league. 6th worst EPA per play on defense this week. I mean, and we all know about the situation with the locker room. It's
Doug
just
Peterson throwing his
are they?
players
I
under the
mean, when the
bus.
tier video comes, no spoilers, but they we
Are
might have
the
found our
Jaguars the new Panthers?
we might have found our new NFL Hell candidate.
Kansas City Chiefs are also a C. The offense is continuing to struggle, and they've lost Rice for the foreseeable future. Him and Hollywood went down. Travis Kelce looked better, and they were saved by their defense. Obviously, a kind of an ugly divisional game with the Chargers, but overall, like they were able to come out with a win, which I think if you get a win, you gotta be like C. Like a C, like even though you play bad, at least you got what really counts. So, and it was over a division rival, so you could argue that it's a little bit better, but it was still not impressive, especially against a team that you are far more talented in.
Yeah, no, again, I think it speaks more to the Chargers than it does the Chiefs. But again, look, like I was saying earlier, this ties in perfectly, right? Chiefs, a lot of injuries, okay, well, that it doesn't matter. You show up and win. That's what good teams do. It's what the Chiefs did. We know the Chiefs pedigree. And that's the thing is why that league should be concerned. It's because the Chiefs are just going to keep getting better. Like, yeah, we know. And that's the thing. The Chiefs haven't, like, that's what's funny. Call it for what it is here. The Chiefs offense has not been playing good ball in the slightest. They're still undefeated. They're still right, the best team. I mean, it's just funny at this point. It's almost laughable that Patrick Mahomes now has the best defense, in my opinion, in football. It's just quite a funny scenario over there in Kansas City at this point. You just got to sit back and laugh. Really.
We also have the Chargers in C, and I think that has to do with like they're one of the least efficient offenses this week. They're only able to get 55 yards on the ground in a Grant Roman offense, which I guess plays what we were just talking about with the Chiefs defense, but the defense definitely carried them this week, and regardless of what you think of the Chiefs offense, holding them to 17 points is impressive.
No, I would certainly agree. But again, and nobody's really talked about this yet. And I know, again, it probably has more to do with the fact that he's injured. But Justin Herbert taking up cap now, you got to step up. You got to step up because I know it hasn't really been like a discussion point. Maybe for Chargers fans it has, but you don't see a lot of it nationally. Look, Justin Herbert's got to step up. Bottom line.
Our last team in the C category, we have the New York Giants. Why are they there, Dobbs? Why did they only get a C?
Aye. Well, overall, not a horrible game necessarily, right? Given the competition level, or what we suspect is the competition level. That is to be determined, I suppose, at this point. But only able to get 26 yards on the ground against one of the worst defenses in the league. They average 1.1 yards per carry. I mean, just pitiful, Hunter.
Yeah, it's bad. I mean, the Giants played a Giants game. That's all I got to say. I mean,
At
Malik
least they have
Neighbors
Malik
looks like
Neighbors.
amazing. Yeah, right, right. Our first team in the B minus C plus category is the Carolina Panthers. Not the best showing. They are able to perform the way they did with the talent that they have against a team that has a little bit of pedigree in the Bengals, and they hung around for most of the game. Obviously, the Cincinnati defense is terrible, so it's not the biggest thing, but the offense still has a lot of playmakers, so to be able to even be in this game with the Cincinnati Bengals is impressive for Dave Canales, especially with the talent that they have.
No, absolutely. And look, and I know other people are saying this. I'm not the first one to come to this realization, nor will I be the last at this point. But you're sitting around with some of the head coaches in the league, and you got to be saying to yourself, Andy Dalton is definitely a better starter than some of these guys who got out here, man. Like, not man, oh man, like Andy Dalton was definitely an underrated player. It is what it is. That's objectively that's a fact at this point.
And the team they played is in the B minus C plus category, the Cincinnati Bengals. Why are they in there even though they lost this game?
Well, look, again, we already discussed they have to find a way to get better on defense. This is not sustainable at all. It is absolutely not sustainable, especially when you're playing really good defenses yourself. But the offense will need to find a way to carry if the defense continues to perform. And look, seventh worst EPA per play on defense all year. I mean, I know we're ragging on the defense, but again, hasn't been an issue until now, and now it's really an issue. Again, it's kind of gotten swept under the rug. Joe Burrow's still playing really good ball, but dealing with that wrist injury, you got to support your boy a little bit here. You got to support your franchise quarterback. You can't have this turn into a Drew Brees. So, that's actually the situation I'm going to compare it to right now. Drew Brees, circa 2013 to 2017. You can't have it turn into that because I'm going to tell you how depressing it is watching your offense go lights out every week, but the defense just completely ruins it. I've lived through multiple years of it. It's not fun.
Denver Broncos are next in the B minus C plus category. The offense was pretty bad, about 60 yards from Bo Nix, 60 yards for Carlton Sutton. But I guess you would kind of expect that from rookie QB, lack of talent, rainy weather versus a very good defense. But they were the number one graded defense in EPA per play this week, and to hold Aaron Rodgers to 9 points is pretty impressive. So I think what the Broncos are doing, I don't know if it's necessarily sustainable like week to week, but if you want to win games, this is how it's going to have to go.
No, absolutely. And there's anything even I want to add to this because we already you're spot on. Everything you said is it's all everything you had to say. What I do want to point out, because it is absolutely hysterical, you got Bleacher Report with how many millions of followers, with how many employees they have. You saw the tweet that they tweeted out that this was Aaron Rodgers' first game being held to 0 career touchdowns. And everybody was like,
It's not
no.
true.
Like you're worth this much money, you have this many employees, and nobody could have done a quick fact check. Unfucking believable.
Houston Texans are the next team in the B minus C plus category. Why are they here and not higher?
Well, Hunter, because look, the Texans were efficient on offense, but they almost lost to one of, if not the worst teams in football. Could have been worse, especially due to the fact that this was a divisional game, right? But they're clearly a better team. And I think Texans fans would agree. You want to see them start to get back to the rhythm they were in last year, where not the offense is it's not a problem, but you want to see a little bit more rhythm, a little more consistency. And you definitely want to see the defense be a little bit more stout like it was toward the end of last year.
Last team in the B minus C plus category is the Los Angeles Rams. They're a very injured team right now. So to be able to be in one score of a team that is one of the best defenses in the NFL, Matthew Stafford was getting chunk play after chunk play later in the game, but turnovers did kill them. They had a fumble, they had an interception, they had another interception that was called back. Plus, when you look at that defense, it just was not holding up in the secondary. There was a lot of holding penalties. So the Rams are in a tough spot, especially with the injuries and the defense just not being good. So they played a good game for what they were put up against.
No, yeah. Make a meme of Stafford and McVay holding up the entire city of Los Angeles, and you would have the accurate depiction of what the Rams are currently, or at least that their side of Los Angeles, side of the Chargers.
Moving into the B tier, we have the Chicago Bears. Why do you think that they are there, Dobbs?
Well, look, you beat an NFC opponent that now has they have the tiebreaker. If they have the same record as the Rams going for a playoff spot, so that's huge. But look, more importantly, this defense is lights out. They're making huge plays. The offense is starting to find its footing in the run game. Shane Waldron is still potentially the war criminal of the year. He hasn't necessarily, we're not fading him as still the number one offensive war criminal of the year. But what's nice is if you're a Bears fan is you can say, despite the Shane Waldron effect. We can see some productivity. We can see Caleb making growth.
Yeah.
It's not the end all be all no matter how things go this year. Because if Shane Waldron's out, don't
You
be
can always
surprised.
get a new OC.
Yes,
You
you can
got
always
the
get a
right
new OC,
quarterback.
and it's going to be a slew of really good ones coming out this year. So we'll just leave it at that.
We have the Indianapolis Colts in the B tier as well. It was a tight battle versus one of the best defenses in the NFL. Joe Flacco was able to run the offense and win the game. Justin Fields also balled out. But when you look at the Colts, it's kind of like, is Joe Flacco the better answer at quarterback if they want to win games this year? And would it benefit Anthony Richardson to sit?
It's almost like we were discussing that last week. But again, not that we're saying we're not out on Anthony Richardson. Just give him
Not
some
right,
time. You
right
gotta.
now, yeah.
It's like when you take the bake out of the oven and it needs like an extra 20 minutes or so, and you're like, yeah, I could eat it right now, but like we're gonna make this thing real crispy and we're gonna make it real nice and we're gonna give the time it needs. That's what you need to do if you're the Colts with Anthony Richardson. Because again, I know the stats didn't look that bad. I know he still is an amazing runner, but you objectively watch and you're saying, man, he misses some of the easiest throws ever that you just can't miss. There are throws he misses that you cannot miss as a starting quarterback. Bottom line.
Las Vegas Raiders are the next team in the B category. Why do we have them there?
Well, Hunter, because look, for the Raiders to come out and beat a Browns team, which is no doubt more talented, right? Especially missing Devontae Adams and Max Crosby, it is very impressive. All right, top 9 in defense and EPA per play this week, 6th most in yards on the ground this week. They are now only second to last in rushing on the year, which is kind of crazy. Ay, ay, ay. But look, again, to beat the Browns the way they did, and more than anything, I'm sticking with it. Yeah, the Browns really did beat themselves more than the Raiders beat them. But you gotta give credit where it's due. That we didn't expect this, and take it as you want. It's to be either way.
The Steelers are the next team in our B tier. Justin Fields played really, really well. He had a fumble kind of that hurt them, but at the end of the day, to throw for 300 yards and to keep your team in the game where the Colts were playing really, really well was very impressive. And props to Fields, but the defense really did kind of screw them over. And the Steelers were actually never favored to win this game from the ESPN win probability ever since the ball was kicked off. The Colts always were favored to win.
That is quite interesting. But yeah, either way, credit to the Steelers. And if you're a Steelers fan, it's not like the sky is falling. I mean, this is very clearly kind of one of those, not to say anomaly weeks, but it happens. You're not going to go undefeated. Most teams are not going to go undefeated. 99.9. So it is what it is. You get the first loss of the season out of the way, you move forward.
Seattle Seahawks are the next team in our B tier. Why do we have them there?
Well, they played a great overall game, but some questionable red zone calls did put them in a bad position. Gino balled out and has impressed. There's no doubt about that. It's almost like losing Shane Waldron is a massive W for a quarterback and the offensive line productivity. But to keep the game close with the injuries they had, great sign. And that's the biggest thing. We talked about it before the game, right? And that's the thing too, is you're saying to yourself, well, it is what we expected. It's not like we lost because the offense didn't do their job. We lost because our defensive line was absolutely dismantled. And hopefully that's not the case in the playoffs. If they make it, again, so far away.
Yeah, if they make it. The last team in our B tier is the Tennessee Titans. I mean, the number 1 ranked defense in EPA per play in week 4 against the Miami team that stinks, but still number 1. The offense looked much better with Mason Rudolph, and I wouldn't be surprised if Will Levis does not get his job back. I know Brian Callahan came out and said that Will Levis is the QB, but were you convinced if Will Levis was in there, they were going to win that game?
Honestly, with how bad the Dolphins played, I think Levis could have maybe turned the ball over 3 times and they still could have won. But like, to your point, I'm going to say this. If it was any other coach, I would be skeptical. But here's why I'm not skeptical, though, is because we've seen how Brian Callahan's not afraid to lay into the man. He's not afraid to let us know how he feels. That's one thing we can say for sure about Brian Callahan at this point. So my thing is, if there was one coach that would take his opportunity and run with it to say, all right, fuck off. Yeah, he's not our quarterback. I do think he would have taken the opportunity when he had it granted. Where the fact that despite all the anger he clearly has towards Levis and he knows he has a lot to grow, I think that there is part of him that still says like, but maybe can I make it work? Like, can I bring that X factor out of him that he might not have? But you get what I'm saying. I do feel like he would have ran with the chance to bench him if he could.
Our first team in the A category, we have the Minnesota Vikings. They really should be a B plus if we had that little tier, just because of the way they kind of were almost blew the game. But overall, they came in, beat a division rival at home, and it should have been a blowout, which is very impressive considering the Vikings have been one of those teams where they've been really good every single week, and I really haven't had a question if they're a good team yet.
No, absolutely. And one again, hand up. I'm gonna say it every single week because there's always gonna be somebody who goes and watches the old rankings preseason and that hasn't seen me have my hand up every single week. Hand up. Team I was most wrong about. The Vikings.
I
They
agree.
continue to impress. They continue to show out. Brian Flores continues to say, hey guys, like if anybody
I'm really
wants a
kidding.
head coach that's gonna coach the old school way and it's not gonna pussyfoot around, but you want me to bring a fire defense? Hey, I'm here. And that's what Brian Flores is saying loud and clear right now.
We have the Detroit Lions in the A category as well. Why are they there, Dobbs?
Well, again, they came out and they did dominate on the ground again versus an injured Seahawks team, so we would have expected that. But they did everything right. They closed out when they needed to. Goff was the first quarterback in NFL history to go perfect after throwing more than 10 completions a game. Little fun fact. But more than anything, what I want to say, and not to be negative, but I think you are going to agree with this. Part of me does say, like after watching yesterday's game, I'm like, Ben Johnson. Some of these calls, I feel like you should have kept you should have pulled the flus and kept them out your sleeve. I feel like a couple of those plays were so nicely designed that I'm like, did we need to pull them out this week against the
Right.
Seahawks? Like, I feel like I would have saved, especially the Goff, the throw from Amon Ra. I'm saving that for the playoffs because you're not gonna be able to bring that back out again. It was fantastic, but this early in the season, I don't know. I'm a little. I would have saved it, but it is what it is. I'm sure Ben Johnson's going to keep cooking. I'm not doubting the man. Let it be crystal clear.
San Francisco 49ers, I have them in the A category because they needed a bounce back after, losing two straight games, and they stomped a team that they really should stomp. Not much more to say than that. They did exactly what they're supposed to do. First on defense in EPA per play, top 8 on offense. So, wait, did I say that the well, I don't know. Basically, from my understanding, they're first on defense on EPA per play. So, very impressive from the 49ers. Next in the A tier, we have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Dobbs, why are they in the A tier?
Also, real quick, I was going to say, I think we were talking about the Niners. Maybe there was two teams like tied for first, but
Yeah.
that's what I think. That's what I think it was. If I'm putting together properly here, but onto the Buccaneers. Look, after a rough week versus Denver, Baker came out balling, but led the Bucs top 4 EPA per play on offense. Game never felt close. And again, come to the tier ranking video, and we said every team's allowed to have a stinker. If you keep showing up more than you don't show up, more than you're not, there's a point where we got to start to consider maybe moving them up. Again, we'll say that for the tier rankings. But the Bucs have impressed much more than they let us down with that 1 week against the Broncos. And again, now you're saying to yourself, well, at least the Broncos defense doesn't feel like as much of an anomaly where they started off really poor, but now all of a sudden that Broncos defense, man, oh man, they're humming, they're kind of scary. So, it's not maybe as much of a red flag even after what we observed this week versus the Jets.
That's what I was confused about. The Broncos are the number 1 overall this year. The 49ers were number 1 last week alone. Moving in to our A+ tier, we have the Washington Commanders and the Baltimore Ravens. Let's start out with the Commanders. They destroyed the Cards. Jane Daniels was historically efficient. They're the number 2 ranked offense in EPA play this week. The defense also made very good plays, which we knew the defense was kind of going to be the side of the ball that struggled, but Dan Quinn seems to be elevating them to a new level. It's very cool to see.
No, yeah, look, everyone always wants to. We all want to. What's the right word here? They want to rag on the man. I'm trying to clean up my language here a little bit. I'm trying to be a better man. But they're trying to, everyone tries to rag on him for the Patriots Bowl. And yeah, it is what it is. But again, we always go back to it. To me, that bull choke, it's more on Shanny's plate than it was on Dan Quinn's plate. And look, last time Dan Quinn was the head coach of a team, he did lead them to the Super Bowl. There is something you can take away from that. And look, the Commanders are looking like they made the right hire. Bottom line.
That was weird. The Baltimore Ravens.
We combined bottom line in Baltimore.
Yeah, Baltimore and bottom line. But they answered the questions that they needed answered, and they stomped out the best team in football. So how are you not A+ after that performance?
Well, and again, too, I think what you're really starting to say is you're starting to see how they're going to tie together the offense. There was a little bit of struggle tying in the fact that now we got to get Derrick Henry in the shotgun super consistently instead of having him all the time in single, but they're mixing it in well. Lamar's getting more used to it. And that's what we're seeing. We're seeing a team that had to get used to how they're going to mesh with Henry. They figured it out. Also, last thing, but the fact they didn't give Derrick Henry one more carry when they threw it to him on third down, when they could have just ran it, you're already up, the game's over. Get the man another 200-yard game. He would have had the most 200-yard games in NFL history. I am actually still pretty upset about that as a non-Ravens fan. Why didn't we get to witness history? Come on, Harbaugh, what's going on? Monken, what's going on?
Thank you guys so much for watching. This has been week 4 grades for every single team. If you don't know ball, want to know ball, be sure to subscribe, leave a like, let us know in the comments who you think should have been a higher grade.